guys, welcome to our new episode with Matt Volm on RevOps alignment with ABM. And Matt, thanks a lot for waking up so early and doing this for us.
Yeah.
Today, I just want to dive deep into RevOps and in the whole community that you are building. Would love to get to know you a bit, pick your brain, and get some advices from companies, because you are advisor of a bunch of different organizations, as I can see here on your LinkedIn. But let's get to directly into RevOps, and that way we can get to know each other a bit. Tell us a bit, how did you end up doing this whole community?
Yeah, well, I think like most people who kind of find themselves in RevOps, it's not necessarily that's not I guess I'll say your starting point or where you thought you'd end up. So for me, my first kind of foray into revenue operations is when I was the VP of BizOps at an early stage startup called Ally.io, which was building OKR software. And I was like one of the first 10-ish employees there. And as kind of VP of BizOps, it meant that I was responsible for, a lot of different things: finance, accounting, legal, board meetings, and then revenue operations. And I think the reason why they gave me RevOps is, one, no one else in the small company it made sense to have. But then also it didn't. It was just a shorter way of saying marketing ops, sales ops, customer success ops, and so they kind of boiled it all down into just RevOps. And so here I was, tons of experience in finance and strategy, but zero experience with RevOps. But now that was my responsibility, and so that was my first kind of foray into the RevOps space. And at Ally, I was there for almost 2 years. Company went from 10-ish employees to 150 plus employees in that time frame, and grew revenue and grew the team and all that good stuff. And then they eventually got acquired by Microsoft, and now the Microsoft Viva Goals product is what was previously the Ally product. So that was my initial kind of foray into RevOps, and I left Ally to start building a company, start another company in the RevOps space. And that's actually where it was with that company that I started RevOps Co-op, the community that we have, which now has almost 10,000 people in it from across the globe, all of which are passionate about revenue operations. And so that's kind of how I guess got to this point, was kind of landing that first gig in BizOps, and then kind of starting a company in the RevOps space and a community at the same time.
So accounting people still have a chance to get into RevOps.
Oh yeah, my first job out of college was as a CPA. So yeah, the path is not linear.
What are the things that now you're putting in practice with that accounting experience, actually, and that finance background?
Yeah, well, actually, I mean, I think one of the biggest pieces for anyone in revenue operations is data analytics, insights, KPIs, and having the finance and accounting background is super helpful, because especially when you're looking at things like recurring revenue growth period over period, when you're calculating metrics like net revenue retention or customer lifetime, having that finance and accounting background of actually understanding like how journal entries get booked, how things show up on the financials, and how the inputs, the things that you do, things like for example, when an agreement actually gets signed, right? When you come to the end of the month, if something gets signed on September 1st, for example, and it's dated August 31st, you're not supposed to recognize that as revenue in August, right? The signature, and there's things like that I learned on the accounting side that when you kind of put them into practice on the ops side are are super helpful. So yeah, I think that's the biggest piece where those things help me.
So since you are in accounting and doing BizOps, RevOps actually developed a lot, right? So the technology developed. Let's dive deep into the current world, and I will make some notes here. You see a lot of companies, you have the whole community, so there are a bunch of questions. So you somehow know the pain of businesses when it comes to this whole RevOps world, right? So if you will make a top three, let's make a top three biggest pains of RevOps that you see today. And then let's go and peel the onion, see why do we have these problems and how can we solve it. Can we do that, Matt, for this podcast?
Yeah, I think
Great.
so. Yeah,
So let's go in order of priority, like the biggest pain, like number one pain of RevOps today.
well, I think you kind of hit on it a little bit before. I think one of the biggest pains is the fact that the role is still evolving and new means that there's not it's not necessarily established. Meaning there are certainly best practices, but there's not a lot of people who have been there, done that, and also nobody actually goes to get a degree in revenue operations, right? So you kind of like I said, you land in the role. Typically because it was given to you, or because you had one thing that was kind of you were good at that brought you in, and now you've got a pretty robust set of responsibilities. So I'll call like the training or like the learning and development aspect. I think is one big challenge. That's we're part of what we're trying to do with the community kind of comes in, right? And I think why the community has continued to grow is because if you're a small team or a team of one on the RevOps side, and you don't have anyone else to go to within your organization to ask questions or to run ideas by, a community can be a great way to do that. And then, we also have things like courses, other ways to level up your skill set, right? To help you learn and develop more as a RevOps professional. But that's definitely one thing that across the board, we see a lot.
Okay, so number one, the role is still evolving. We will go into it. What's the second one?
I'll say the second one is, I guess what I would call as, let's see, how can I say this? It's a lot of the things that RevOps can be faced with are kind of tactical in nature. And so, getting out of, moving beyond the tactical into the strategic side, right? So not just running reports or providing data points, but delivering insights, recommendations, solutions.
So becoming more strategic.
Yep.
Right? Too tactical today. Okay, got it. We can go into that. And the third one that we can talk today about?
Let's see. I don't know if this is kind of duplicating what I mentioned on the first one, but I'll say it's I don't know, a little bit about I'll say like resource allocation, meaning the to-do list for anyone in RevOps is very, very long, and it's figuring out how to prioritize, what to prioritize, right? Whether that's your time, other people's time, or just where to invest budget if you have it.
Okay, cool. So we can go later on into what should actually RevOps do and where should they put their time.
Yeah.
Okay.
What would you say your top three things are?
For sure, I think it's is this idea of draw. It's like I feel that. The second one, I think, still I don't find that the RevOps people with whom I talk, they don't understand all the processes in a business. What I mean by that is that you have sales. It's a very complex role, right? So you need to know sales ops, you need to know marketing ops, so you need to know funnels, you need to know how are your leads coming in, and conversion rates, how to actually budget based on the marketing activities. Then you need to understand sales, all the sales processes, all the sales velocity. You need to understand how quotations. So there is a lot of data points. Then you have customer success. That's again something that you need to solve. Then maybe you have finance. So I think the role is extremely complex. You have a lot of competencies that you need to have. So it's like almost having an MBA, right? Like really, like you need to know so many things. So the lack of know-how and lack of past experience of different companies, it's a big issue. The second one is also learning. So I come with a learning and development background. So I worked in corporations in learning and development. And what I see is that you have a huge competency gap when it comes to small and medium companies, but then you have a bunch of competencies in the corporate, but these two don't align, right?
Yeah.
So when I listen to Jeff Ignacio, amazing guy, I want to have him in the podcast here. But some of those things we cannot apply in HubSpot, for example, right? Because it's a very Salesforce corporate enterprise level type of talk, right? And nowadays, RevOps also have this, let's put it like a junior side of it, right? Like the HubSpot is the junior side of RevOps, let's say, right? And that's where the competences are missing. There's a lot of competences with enterprise, Salesforce, so on, but less with these HubSpot, let's say, junior RevOps teams. And there is a lot of buzz around this whole topic, also coming from investors or coming from SaaS companies, that everybody tries to implement it, but they don't really know what to expect from RevOps. And that's another problem, like expectation. Like, what are the expectations towards RevOps? Like, some people think it's data, some people think it's processes, others integrations. It's like solution architecture. So it's many different people see it differently.
Yeah.
So that's my take on it. But let's see the role. So the role is still evolving. So let's break this down. And you have more knowledge on this than I do. When do you think this whole RevOps boom started, and why? And how when it started to evolve actually more and more?
Well, I think it started to take off. I think probably roughly like 3.5 years ago, because I remember when we started my current company, which was July of 2020. So about 3 years ago. One of the things I did in the months leading up to that, and talking to some investors that I knew, was just ask them if they had heard or really seen this whole like RevOps role or function taking shape within companies or organizations. And a lot of them most of them said no, that they hadn't. But when I looked at LinkedIn, I saw a bunch of people from some impressive companies with job titles in revenue operations, and I think it was shortly after that LinkedIn kind of came out with like something about RevOps being like one of the fastest growing like job titles or whatever. And I think a lot of that started roughly 3.5 years ago, and it's just been kind of growing since. And I think like a lot of things, it it's one of those things that one started in the United States and two started primarily in the technology industry, and is now spreading globally, internationally, outside of the U.S. and companies outside of outside of SaaS software are starting to adopt the RevOps model as well.
And you think it was the same time with ABM, because also there was this boom on ABM, even though it's very misunderstood also.
Yeah, I feel like ABM was a little earlier
Yeah.
Than that.
Yeah, Terminus and all those guys, they started earlier, but
Yeah.
it was also like a huge boom. Okay, so then you have like 3 years ago, and you have all these roles that LinkedIn also was reporting on. HubSpot developed their platform also, right? Like they did a lot of changes, and they also got this narrative of RevOps. So if you think about the role, right? Like what should be in the role and should not be in that role, because we are talking about the evolution of it, but it's
Yeah.
like maybe misunderstood sometimes.
Yeah. I mean, so in terms of the like the scope of the role, I think uh, it should be aligned with what's in the title, right? Which is revenue, right? So
Mm-hmm.
all the operations that support your revenue process, your revenue engine, which means marketing, sales, and post sales, customer success, customer support. And I think within those areas, the things that RevOps should be chartered with are the people, the process, and the technology that supports those areas. So in its simplest form, it should be marketing, sales, post sales, people, process, technology is what RevOps should be responsible for. And I think a lot of I think the biggest missing piece on on that first part that I mentioned, marketing, sales, post sales, is the post sales process. I feel like up to this, it's getting more attention now because so many businesses are looking to their current customer base to keep their customers and expand revenue with their current customers. But I think up to this point, RevOps has typically been more kind of marketing ops and sales ops combined. But can't forget about the post sales experience, because that's where a majority of your recurring revenue actually comes from.
Mm.
And then when it comes to like people, process, technology, I think the default is always the technology, and it's like, hey, we need an integration built, or hey, we need reports run, or hey, we need new fields so we can capture this stuff. But yeah, the thing to not forget about is the process and the people aspect of that as well. So like, what are the things that we're doing to drive revenue that work? What are the things that don't work? Where should we invest more? Where should we invest less? Those are all questions that RevOps should be able to answer, because again, they have the full scope from marketing to sales to post sales, right? They should be able to answer questions like, hey, of all the customers who churned last quarter, like what marketing channels did we acquire them from? What sales reps closed those deals? What geographies did they come from? Like, what traits are there any unifying traits across those churn customers that indicate maybe we should be investing less in a certain marketing channel, or investing more, or are certain sales reps closing like crummy deals, or are certain sales reps closing great deals, right? Like, those are all questions that RevOps should be able to answer, because they have that end-to-end view.
Mm-hmm. So if you're a SaaS and you didn't have this role, you want to get this role into your team, but you want to recruit internally, right? Like, you don't want to go out and recruit like someone who like crowned themselves as RevOps, right? So we don't need a Napoleon, but we need someone internally who could take this role. And how should we look at that um, candidate? Like, what are the competencies, or who could be internally a very good RevOps person, right?
Yeah, I think the main thing to look for would be someone who has a demonstrated track record of just like taking on new things, or even like trying new things and failing at them. But you want someone who's comfortable being uncomfortable, right? Who's not
Mm.
afraid to dive into something new that they haven't done before, but own it and learn it. And that doesn't necessarily need to have anything to do with Salesforce or HubSpot or revenue, right? Like it could be anyone. It could be someone on the finance team, someone on the sales team, someone else on the ops team. But the things that I would always look for, would be like who has a demonstrated track record of taking on some new tool, new system, right, and just diving in and figuring it out, or deploying some new process because they saw something was broken and no one else was fixing it, right? Those are the things that that you'll need to be successful in RevOps, because that's basically just going to be your job every single day.
So you would not look into, okay, do you have experience in the marketing automation tool or whatever?
No, I mean it depends like what stage you're at, right? And if you're like if you're a established later stage company, who's big, right? You have kind of processes, already, defined, right? And you kind of have, specialists, right? That you have in each role. Then, if you want, if you've got Marketo and, like people need to own that, and you need someone who you can just like drop in, who can really just kind of be effective from the very beginning, then you're probably going to want to hire someone who has, Marketo experience, right? But if you're earlier stage and you're, just forming your RevOps team, or, you're looking to hire your first people, or maybe you've got a couple of people and you're continuing to hire, typically, starting broad and hiring more narrow as you go is going to be the way to approach it. And so, I'll take the call it the jack of all trades, who has a demonstrated track record of doing new things, over a specialist, typically any day.
Okay, so we have the candidate, we understand the role. Now we go to the second topic, which is more around be more strategic, don't be so tactical, right? So we get this person. Why? So let's talk first about why RevOps folks became more tactical than strategic. How can they become strategic, and how can we make our candidate with whom we just hired more strategic?
Yeah. Well, I think a lot of the role is technical in nature, right? Because you're owning the tools, the systems, the data points that get generated. There's a lot that goes into there across marketing, sales, and post sales, and so it's kind of natural to start on the like more the technical or the tactical side. I think the main thing that everybody can do to not settle in there is just keep asking. I don't know, like ask why often, right? So if someone says like, hey, we've got like we need a new integration built between tool X and tool Y, or hey, we need to update our integration. We need to add this field to Salesforce, and we need to pass that data into whatever, some other tool. Like rather than just being an order taker, right, and understanding like how you accomplish the thing that they're asking you to do, is understand why are they doing it, right? Like is it are they trying to pass data from Salesforce to some other tool because they don't like it saves them a copy paste? Is there something on the process side that could be improved or optimized there? Or if they're asking you for data points, right, or like to run a report or give them some sort of number on like pipeline generated last quarter to this quarter, rather than just give them the data, like ask them why they want it, right? And then, see what you can bring to the table beyond just that data point, right? So if they ask about pipeline, you bring them the pipeline numbers, and maybe you also tell them why pipeline went up or why pipeline generation went down. They may not have asked for that, but tell them why, right? And then maybe even give some options, suggestions on things that could be done to course correct or do more, right? Did pipeline generation go up? If so, why? Maybe we should do more of that, right? Did it go down? If so, why? Okay, how can we correct that? So try to bring that full circle, and I think it hits on some of the like the business acumen that you mentioned, right? Which can also be hard to tie, to truly understand how those activities or those inputs, right? The things that we do at a company every single day, how they actually drive the business results. Understanding all of that, that's, I think, the biggest piece that can take you out of the pure tactical, technical stuff and into that, more strategic advisor sort of role.
So you would say that an internal candidate would be better because it knows the company best, right? Than hire someone external.
Yeah, I mean, and that kind of depends too. I mean, I think whether it's internal or external, if they have if they have a track record of being able to jump in new things, pick them up quickly, and own them, I think it doesn't necessarily matter whether that's internal or external.
Yeah, so it's more important that. Okay, so and any suggestion how we can get our candidate more strategic when it comes to RevOps, like courses to do, books to read? How can we skill up our candidate that we just put on a RevOps role?
Yeah, well, I think on the coaching side, the mindset piece is important, and it's one of those things that, like all that stuff I mentioned before, you can't take it for granted. You need to keep that stuff top of mind, like even I do, right? Of like, don't fall into the status quo of just, again, answering questions or, taking orders and fulfilling them, right? So kind of be intentional about, taking things one step further and trying to solve for those things and be proactive, right? Put yourself into situations where you can learn, but realize that none of that stuff is going to be given to you, right? So if you see some like weekly team meetings that, I don't know, where the go-to-market team is meeting and you're not a part of them, don't wait for someone to ask you if you want to show up to those things. Ask if you can go, even just to like listen in and hear how they talk, hear how they think. So be proactive in things like that. And like I said, that's more on the mindset side. And then, the other way you can do that outside of surrounding yourself with the right people within your company is, surround yourself with the right people outside of your company, right? So that's where community stuff can be super helpful, right? RevOps Co-op, we've got 10,000 plus people you can surround yourself with in RevOps all across the globe. We offer courses. There's other communities, other courses that you can take too. But always focus on that continuous improvement and where you can learn to level up those skills that you may have gaps in. And I think a combination of those things will be a good recipe for success.
Any book that you think like every RevOps person should read when it comes to leveling up?
I haven't seen. I mean, I know. I don't know about books. I mean, but there's plenty of I'll say blogs, literature, content out there, and there's a couple of different spots you can go to it, right? Like, we obviously create a ton of content at RevOps Co-op on all things RevOps. There's other, I think it's like Salesforce Ben has a bunch of stuff on like Salesforce specific stuff. There's HubSpot Academy on, like kind of a bunch of like basic HubSpot stuff. So, and I know there's a couple of people who I think are in the process of quote unquote writing the book on RevOps or trying to. I haven't picked up anything yet though.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so we are strategic, we understand the role. Now we need to allocate resources, right? Why this, in your view, like why is this a problem?
Well, I think one, I think it's a problem with probably like everyone, right, myself included, of like how do you prioritize your day, your time, because you have a million things on your to-do list and you're never able to get to all of them. But for RevOps, I think it's heightened because, again, we talked before about marketing, sales, post-sales, people, process, technology. There's just a lot there that you could do on any given day. And some of that stuff, again, because the RevOps role is so broad, it means some of those things are going to be right in your wheelhouse, right? The things you're good at, the things you enjoy doing, the things that you can knock out. And some of them are going to be harder, take more time. It may not be the thing that is, like the thing you're the best at. And so, the trap that a lot of people can fall into, right? If they're, let's say they're highly technical, great at the system stuff, is, like just knocking out the systems related tasks or to-dos on any given day, right? The integration updates, the field updates, the flow updates, all of that stuff, because that's fun. They're building, right? But, the thing you need to look at, again, where it connects to what's going to generate business results, again, your role is, RevOps, right? And so, what's going to have the greatest impact on revenue? You should be looking at all those things, determining what the trade-offs are, and tackling each of those items one by one based on the business impact that they'll have, right? So, my guess right now is if there's a bunch of things in your backlog that are customer success or customer support related, those are, probably going to be the things that I would put at the top of my list, because if they're going to help us retain customers, expand our revenue with our current customers, those are, critical things for any business, right now. And so just understanding the actual results that your work will produce, and understanding what that link is, I think that's the best way to tackle that prioritization problem.
And from what you see in the community and in other companies, the RevOps role usually has this, at the beginning, has this 90 days plan, right? Is this something common that you see, like the 90 days plan of a RevOps manager or expert?
Yeah, and I think whether it's a like a 90-day plan, a 6-month plan, right? Whatever it might be. I'm big on, like, again, goals, outcomes, right? So if you have OKRs, quarterly objectives, right? Like whatever it is, try to document some stuff when you first step into any new role. Understand what the problems are, right? Talk to as many people as you can, investigate as many areas as you can, document all those different problems that you see, prioritize those problems, in terms of, again, what's going to have the biggest impact, develop solutions to those problems, updating, new fields in Salesforce, new flows in Salesforce, new process, new training, right? More people, less people, whatever that might be. And then, kind of align those problem solutions with the goals of the business, right? Or the objectives of the business, right? Do we have goals around revenue growth? Do we have goals around revenue retention? Churn rates, right? Whatever it might be, tying the problem solutions you identified to the goals or objectives of the business, that's what will create that alignment. And then be transparent with people on all of that stuff, right? So that you can get feedback, you can make sure everyone's on the same page, that they all agree with you. And so, yeah, if that's, what you kind of do in the first 90 days, 60 days, 30 days, 120 days, whatever it is.
So what are the big projects that you usually see in these RevOps roadmaps, like the first 90 days? Like, what are the big blocks? Like, I understand that you need to dive deep and understand the OKRs, understand the goals, interview people, understand all the objectives of the company and where you can bring the impact. But just from your insights, what you saw within the community, and you talk a lot with RevOps people, what are those big buckets of projects that you see over and over again in roadmaps?
Yeah.
Of sort.
I mean, a lot of it, I think a lot of people always kind of, especially as you start to talk to people, there's going to be a lot of system stuff that comes up. And I think the role with folks in RevOps is understanding how the system stuff ties to like the actual process, right? So like, one example,
an audit or what exactly?
Yeah, I mean, like one example might be like, I remember like when I first started at Ally, it was like, one of the things was like, hey, I really want our free trial signups to make their way into Salesforce, right? And so I was like, okay, well, why, right? And like trying to understand the process, right? And it turned out like today it was, the current process today involved like an inbound SDR having to navigate to all these different screens and tabs, and things were falling through the cracks and all that stuff. So it turned out to be like much more than just pushing contact data into Salesforce for free trial signups. There was like a scoring, like lead scoring involved, and just like a bunch of other stuff, right? So taking those things like one step deeper. I think, don't accept any of that stuff at face value, right? But definitely try to get a sense of the entire universe of problems, pain points, challenges that, that exist within the company that you're at. 'Cause that's going to allow you to figure out where to tackle stuff first.
Yeah. So that's very important, I think, what you say here. Process mapping, really understand that, and then dive into that audit, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so we have the audit side, and so this is like on the diagnostic side. Usually in these 90 days, we want to have some quick wins. What are the other? Sorry that I'm trying to peel the onion so much. I'm just trying to be as practical for our audience as possible when it comes to what they can do in the first 90 days, right? So you do the process mapping, you do a system audit. This is what you see. What are the other things that could bring that quick win?
Yeah, I mean, we'll find like within that stuff, right? You'll probably find, like some big rocks like that, right? That I mentioned of like, okay, there's kind of a important process level stuff that needs to get solved. But I think you're probably also going to discover like some low hanging fruit in that case as well. And so, yeah, like you said, make sure to, this will be also the thing to consider is like first impressions matter. And so when you come in, don't just spend, 90 days like planning and documenting a bunch of like big projects that need to be done, but actually deliver some value to each respective team in that time frame to, like you said, show some good faith, some quick wins, proof that, you're there to help and support them, right? And, there's going to be stuff guaranteed that will come up that will be easy to tackle or handle, but is one of those things that, for whatever reason, right, just hasn't gotten done. It may be like system stuff, right? With like, I don't know, like validation rules or like, Salesforce views or reports. Like, I'm not sure what, but like you'll uncover those things. So like be on the lookout for those little things that, might have like big value or, a lot of annoyance maybe for certain teams now, but like low effort. And definitely knock some of those out for the people on your team, because that'll get folks on your side right away for sure.
Okay. And before we finish, I'm just curious about the mistakes, right? The mistakes that are in this 90 days plans. Like, what are the things that RevOps folks put there, but they are just not allocating their budget and time well, and you would highly suggest to rethink those actions, especially in the first 90 days.
Yeah, well, make friends, right, with everybody. The other thing is like, especially because if you're tasked across marketing, sales, success, there's going to be probably natural tension that already exists across leaders on those respective teams. So you definitely don't want to come in like you're playing favorites or anything like that. So like I said, identify some of those quick win opportunities across every team. Make sure you do them for every team, right? And yeah, just make it clear that what you're prioritizing is the stuff that's best for the business, not necessarily the stuff that each team wants the most. And yeah, those things will kind of take you leaps and bounds forward. And then don't try to do too much, and try to really focus on places where you can have impact, right? Better to do a few things really well and above average than do a lot of things poorly and below average. So, try to knock some stuff out of the park, and that's going to require focus, which is also going to be hard because you're going to have a lot of stuff on your to-do list. But yeah, those are some of the things that I would say are mistakes to avoid is, make sure you kind of spread the love around, right? Do some quick wins for each of the teams, the stakeholders that you support. And then while you're trying to identify the universe of kind of things, problems, right, that you can work on that exist, know that there's no way you're going to be able to tackle all of them, and you don't want to try to do them all at the same time. So make sure that you really are laser focused on, a select few where you can make an impact and do them really, really well.
Cool. So I got it. We need to make a lot of friends. We need to listen to a lot of people. We need to understand the business, have an OKR, have the goals in place. But there will be a lot of voices in the company, right? Like sales will tell us something, marketing something else, customer success something else. And we need to report to someone, right? Like we need to listen to like a bigger authority. Who should this be, right? And who will take the final decisions when it comes to, or who should I go as a new RevOps person to guide me in the company, right? Because there I can be very easy in a lot of mess and in a lot of different ideas, a lot of different projects, overwhelmed. So I need some kind of guidance. Who is this person in the company who is guiding me and who is telling me which project I should take first?
Yeah. Well, I think when it comes to where RevOps should support, again, this will be or report into this, it will be dependent on the company and kind of the current structure. In terms of the things that I believe are the things that work, one, again, assuming that the RevOps role that we're talking about supports marketing, sales, and post sales, and that each of those areas has their own respective leader, right? VP of marketing, VP of sales, VP of customer success. Number one rule is RevOps should not report directly to one of those stakeholders. Because if they report to the VP of sales, then you can call them RevOps, but they'll really just be sales ops, right? Because what do you think they're going to prioritize? The sales stuff because of who they report to. Same if they were to report to marketing or to customer success. So, in that case, if you have a chief revenue officer who oversees all of those departments, having RevOps report up into them makes sense. If you have a VP of BizOps or a COO, Chief Operating Officer, having RevOps report into them could also make sense. I don't think RevOps necessarily makes sense to report into like the head of finance. A lot of times I'll see that, but I think that's because the finance person is kind of playing like the ops role as well. But if you have a VP of finance and a VP of ops, like RevOps should report to the ops person, not to the finance person. And then also like reporting, directly into like the CEO or someone like that is another option. But again, because the main thing you want there is the role of RevOps is to do what's best for the business when it comes to revenue generation, which involves marketing, sales, and customer success. And you need to prioritize things across all of those teams. And the only way that you can do that is if the person or the team that you report into is aligned with that as well, right? And so that's going to be the chief executive officer, the COO, the head of BizOps. So that's where things make the most sense.
Got it. So we have all this set up. We know who to report to. Also, allocation is done. We know the role. And now the question comes, okay, but why should we actually do all this? And we can finish with this last question. Why should we even bother with RevOps nowadays? Why we could just do all the things how they were, and there is no conflicts. Everybody is in their own ops. Sales has their own ops people. Marketing also. Customer success. Why do we even need a RevOps, and we should even bother about this? Just an extra cost.
Yeah, I mean, I would say if I guess the reason why is if you're a business who cares about revenue, then probably makes sense to have an ops team dedicated to that. And I think you can argue. I always kind of use like the same kind of analogy I did. Like when I started at Ally.io, right? They were OKR software. They were very early in the space. And a lot of people, when I told them where I was going or what I was doing, they didn't even know what OKRs were or what they kind of stood for. But to me, it made a lot of sense because I was like, hey, every business or company out there should have goals, objectives, right? Like things they're trying to accomplish. And it makes sense that they would have software to help them track, measure, manage those goals. Like it just seemed kind of obvious to me. And RevOps seems like that same thing, right? You go out and you ask any business, like, what's the single most important metric on your financials today? Right? Like my 99% of people are going to say revenue, because revenue is what keeps you in business. Revenue growth is what gets you more funding. And so if revenue is the most important business metric for any company out there today, then why would you not have an ops team dedicated to like driving efficient revenue growth for your business? So yeah, it just makes a lot of sense to me, especially when you think about the ability to standardize and like consistently deliver results. I think that's where RevOps fits nicely. And I think, yeah, any business who cares about revenue, which is effectively every business, should have a dedicated ops team.
Good. Thanks a lot, Matt. Thanks a lot, folks, for tuning in. It was great to pick your brain. Sorry if I was, too aggressive with, getting as practical as possible. but this is what we promise to our audience here.
Yeah.
So a lot of great stuff. Where can people find you? Like, what's the best way besides the obvious LinkedIn, right? Like Matt Volm. How do you pronounce it? German name, right?
Yep. Yep. Yeah. So German name. Yeah. You can find me on. You can find me on LinkedIn. You can join our community as well. RevOpsCoop.com. Variety of membership options, including a free membership option, and I'll be in the RevOps Co-op Slack group. You can DM me anytime, email me there. So yeah, those are the best places to find me.